I'm Joey Exotic, and today this is not going out.
Coronavirus pandemic is upending our lives in ways.
Imagine all the people.
I'm Joe Exotic, and today this is not going out to any kind of a presidential candidate or any politician. The purpose of this video today is to let you know who I am. First thing is, I am not cutting my hair.
Some good old-fashioned relatable filmmaking content right there. So right now you're probably quarantined at home like most of us, and you're feeling like you're limited in what you are able to create right now. Or even before all this happened, you were unable to find friends who you were able to make film projects with, or you were too embarrassed to ask someone. So why don't we just learn how to film ourselves? So what we're gonna do is break down that intro video and figure out what it is that we can do to make an interesting film using just us as a subject. And I have a couple tips for you. Six tips. Tip number one, let's talk about the gear that we need. And it's two things. You need your camera package and you need your tripod, and that's it. Anything else is just kind of extra if you want it. And by camera package, I'm talking about what your camera needs and able for it to perform. Some cameras need SD cards, some cameras need lenses, and some cameras, like a phone, don't need anything. If you are filming on your phone, you're already ready to go and ready to film. And yes, I used a cinema camera to film mine. That's because I am a cinematographer in real life. And no, you don't have to be a cinematographer in real life to make something like this. And no, you don't need a cinema camera to make this. So for all you haters out there, start hating. But just as equally as important as the camera is the tripod. Since you're going to be filming alone and there's no one to hold on to the camera, you're gonna have to rely on your trusty handy dandy tripod. I use a relatively medium priced tripod that supports the weight of heavier, more expensive cameras, but pretty much anywhere sells really cheap and inexpensive tripods that you're able to use for your camera. And I know that they make a ton of really great tripods for phones. But I will just say that be careful with buying cheap tripods, because if you're out filming and you find yourself on a windy day when there's no one there monitoring the camera yourself, the wind could knock over your tripod and you can end up damaging gear like I have. Those are the two things that you need, but something that is optional that helps out a ton if you're able to have it is an external monitor that you're able to face towards you, so that while you're in the frame, you're able to see what you look like in the frame. And no, this isn't a necessity. You can obviously get the job done without one. I actually made this same exact video 2 years ago and I didn't use an external monitor for that. So it is definitely something you're able to do. Moving on to our second tip, and that is finding your frame. When you're setting up your shot, I've found it easiest to set it up without you actually in the frame already. By first finding what part of the location you want yourself to be interacting with, it's easier to set up a nicely composed frame of the location and then let yourself play around within that frame. And then once you have your frame locked off, you're able to hit record, run around, and just play within the boundaries of that frame that you were able to set up with. Finding your frame is essentially finding your composition. Composition isn't just something that you learn instantly. It's something that takes time and practice for you to walk into a location and at a glance know exactly where you're going to set up your shot. So if you're a beginner, try relying on your rule of thirds guides to help you navigate your location once you get there. I know your camera or your phone are going to have rule of thirds grid lines that you're able to turn on, and then try positioning yourself or your object of importance at the intersecting of where those lines meet, or you can separate the frame by sections of thirds. Quickly breaking down this frame right here, we can see that I'm positioned on the left third line at the bottom left intersection, and the hallway lights lead your eyes towards me. So make sure you do your research and learn a little bit more about composition so you're able to find the best angles and the best framing for your shots. The third tip is about focusing. So for me, the most challenging part of filming yourself is focusing, especially for us filmmakers that love to shoot with wide open apertures to create the most amount of depth as possible in our image. So any movements towards or away from the camera, you're going to lose your focus. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that you're in manual focus. Even if you have a camera that can perform autofocus like mine in the C200, I typically like to turn it off because when you're moving around in front of a lens, you can't really rely on that autofocus. It's gonna focus in and out at random times and potentially mess up your shot. And so something that I like to do is focus on an object nearby where I want to be focusing. Here I knew I was going to be next to the doorknob in the shot, so I focused there and kept the focus there. And then it was okay for me that when I walked away from the door that I started to become out of focus, and you know, usually you'd have someone rack focus in that situation, but we're doing the best that we can here. And then the next thing that you can do is that if you find yourself trying to focus on an area where there's no objects around, like this scene right here where I'm walking in to focus, what you can do is bring in what I call a stand-in. And a stand-in is just any object that you can place in your frame while you try to grab focus. You place that object where you want it to be, set focus, and then when you're ready to film, you replace the object with yourself. I usually just use like a cheap little light stand because it can get taller, which is really useful if you're filming someone who is standing up and is taller than the lens, but you can really use anything. Then the last thing that you can do to get focus is increase your aperture. You could be shooting at like an f10 where everything's in focus, but the issue with that is that you're not getting that nice depth of field that we want, and you're also losing a lot of light when you're cranking up that aperture, and most of us aren't gonna be carrying around huge 18K lights. And tip number 4 is a big one. It is shot diversity. Like any film, you want to get a lot of coverage and a lot of shot diversity in order to move your film along, especially since you're filming yourself and the camera is super static and there's only one character. Shot diversity is really important. So you're going to want to mix in a variety of wide, medium, and tight shots. Your wide shots are going to establish where you are. Your medium shots are going to move your story along, and then your tight shots are going to bring the viewer into your subject, who in this case is you, into their world. The variety of shots are gonna keep things interesting, keep your audience engaged, and it's gonna give your self video a little more production value than if you're just holding on one stale shot the entire time. I try to get a wide, medium, and tight shot on every scene that I'm shooting, because when you get into the edit, you're gonna be super thankful that you took the extra time to go ahead and do that. Tip number 5 is play yourself. Most of us aren't actors, but I am. Just kidding, most of us aren't actors, including myself, and many of us find it to be really uncomfortable to be on the other side of the camera. Now, I find the best way to combat this feeling of being uncomfortable with just by playing yourself. Once you start trying to overact and you're not a good actor, and you're going a little bit too far, it starts to become a little too cringeworthy, and you'll look back on that film and you'll be like kind of embarrassed by yourself. So just be who you actually are and do the things that you would actually do. And tip number 6 is add sound. 50% of your audience experience while they're watching your film is going to be the sound. The opening scene where you're hearing blips of news off my phone and TV opens up the world of this video. It puts you in a time frame of when this is happening and brings an instant connection between the audience and you, the subject. While I was filming, I was just laying on the couch in different positions, which was super easy. And then later in post-production, I grabbed sounds off the internet of the Tiger King documentary, news about the coronavirus, and that celebrity Imagine montage, which was just awful. I did a combination of both adding some sound in post-production and then recording some sound as I went. I had a mic running off the front of my camera, and you can use an external mic if you have one, use the internal microphone of your camera. Or if you're recording on a phone, your phone's going to have an internal microphone itself. So use the natural sounds and use sound design to build the environment of your film. You, yes you. What are your excuses for not creating something right now? All you're gonna need is you, your camera, and a tripod. Try making a film of yourself today or tomorrow and send it over to me. I'd love to check it out. Send it to my email. Send me like a YouTube video link or a Vimeo video link. Don't send me something on Instagram because I hate watching videos on my phone. So I probably won't watch it. So just keep creating, keep practicing, keep learning. And when all of this finally blows over, you'll come out a better filmmaker and more importantly, a better person. Thank you for watching, and I love you.